snowmans watching around the world. This is Jake Sanderson, aka Snowman Cycling. Your friendly neighbourhood snowman is back once again with another race recap video for you. And this week it's something extremely special because today is in fact my birthday. I know I don't look a day over 21, but I am unfortunately 35 years old. Oh, how time flies when you're getting old. So what better way to celebrate than to show you guys some more pain, suffering, sweat, blood and tears as I go back once again to the Electric Spirit Company Pre-Pandial Crit Lunchtime Series. Are really cool races. I absolutely love them. They're short, brutal, fast and furious. And you get to go up against the mixed category field, so we're going to test ourselves against the big boys in A as well as our fellow Bs. This one's going to be short, sharp, savage and sickly as we do 4 kilometers of sea to tree, which means we're going to go up the Temple KOM and we're going to need our gravel bike on hand. And if we manage to pick up the win in this one, then I've got a little surprise in store for the celebration, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've got to get the win first, and that starts with getting changed right now, getting ourselves on the bike, warmed up, getting the blood pumping. I've got 15 minutes before this one kicks off. I don't think that's going to be enough time. The things I do for you, YouTube. Okay, time to go and get changed, get myself onto the bike, and I'll see you shortly in the pen.
If they're not on the gravel bike, they're in trouble. You want to be on the gravel bike. Any last takers? I like these small races though, they're good fun. You can't let the wheel go. Okay, here we go.
Okay, here we go guys. I'm going to watch this one along with you, try something a bit different this time and try and give my perspective as I'm watching this one live to let you know what I was thinking and see if we can have a look at some tactics at the same time. So let's do this one as we burst out of the pen here. There's only 3 B riders, but we've got a few other riders including 3 A category riders. So we make sure that we're going to get out of that pen at a furious pace to make sure that we get onto these wheels. And this rider just ahead of me, Nick from Electric Spirit Company, I've seen him around a few times. I know he's a really strong rider. This other rider, Quader, I had a quick look at him on Zwift Power before. He's got a really strong 20-minute power. He's got a really good 5-minute power, but he's not got a particularly good punch. So I know that if I can just sit on his wheel, let him do some dirty work for me, then me and Nick are going to have a bit more of a fight later on. But that all depends on if we're going to be able to hold his wheel, because this Quader guy is going to go really, really hard. I think he's going to try and bridge up to the C's and the A's just ahead. I'm not too concerned at this point about getting to the riders ahead. The C riders I feel we will naturally catch anyway. The A riders are already a few seconds ahead that I don't really want to be using more energy than I have to try and get onto their wheel, especially with this climb coming up a bit later on. But if Quader wants to make his way up the group, I'm going to have to follow his wheel and do that work as well. As Nick decides to come too, we push our way through the C riders. We didn't stick around with them for too long. Always quite happy with that. Don't really like to influence the C ride if I can avoid it. And like I mentioned in the pen at the start, the thing that's really important here is that I am on the gravel bike and Quader, and it looks like Nick behind me, are also on the Tron bike. So they're going to have the advantage here on the pavement, on the boardwalks and on the flat, but I am going to have the advantage as soon as we hit that gravel climb. So Quader has probably picked the wrong bike for this, which means he's going to have to go as hard as he can now to try and get a bit of separation, put me and Nick under some pressure, and then maybe he's got a chance of getting a gap and going away with it. But he's not got long because that climb is going to come up pretty shortly. I think it's about 1 kilometre or so of tarmac, paved roads before we hit that gravel climb, and then that gravel climb is going to be 2.5, 3k. It's going to be about the 8-9 minute mark when we hit the finish line. I've done this race once before in May, I think. It was about 9 minutes or so. So that's the target that I'm looking for here. As I can see that one of these overambitious C's decides to push the pace and Quader goes with him. So he's influencing the B race here, but I kind of like it. There's nothing that says that you can't race with the guys above you, as we're going to see with the A's shortly. So good work for that C rider, but probably a bit too hard, a bit too early. And as soon as we hit the gravel here in the KOM, I look to the camera and I say, hopefully this gravel setup is going to pay off, because it sure didn't help me much on that gravel. But the pace at this point has been pretty high. These guys are obviously going as hard as they can to try and make life difficult for everybody else, and I really think that's a good idea, especially if you don't have a punch or much of a sprint like Quader does. You kind of have to go all in. You kind of have to put people like me on the limit as best as you can, make them suffer. And as that happens, Nick makes a really good attack. I really like that move. He saw a little bit of weakness in the B and the C behind, and he decided this was his chance. He realizes that they're on the Tron bike, and at this point I'm thinking he's moving very, very fast for someone on a Tron bike, and his numbers don't look like there's somebody that's on a Tron bike. So I'm starting to get a little bit suspicious at this point as the gap opens up and Nick accelerates away from me, that maybe he changed bike in the pen. I don't know if some of you know that or not, but if you change bike in the pen, sometimes there's a visual glitch for the other people around you that the bike doesn't change. So it can be a really cheeky, crafty tactic if you want to do that sort of thing, like this, like Nick's done here. Don't know if he did it on purpose or if that was just a glitch, but it really made me think, and I thought I was going to have a really easy run of this. But when we hit the climb and Nick started accelerating, as he does here and that gap opens up, I realised this is not going to be easy. This is going to be really difficult. And my heart rate is already at 179. My max is about 188. So we're already in the deep, dark depths of what I would be looking at towards the end of a race here. And we are 3.5 minutes in. So this one is already pretty furious, pretty fast, pretty flat out. And Nick is doing a really good job here of pacing and keeping the B and the C rider behind us at length. So they're not going to be able to come back whilst Nick's holding this pace, even though they're doing pretty good numbers. Quader does 4.5 watts per kilo the whole way up this climb. But if you don't have that punch, it's just going to be really, really difficult to be able to close the gap. So me and Nick doing a good job here, surfing each other's wheel. I'm letting him do all the work, really. I'm not giving him much of a turn, so I'm being a bit naughty. I'm not being a good racer. He's probably a bit annoyed with me, but sometimes that's what you have to do. Nick is really strong here. He accelerates away from me again, and these gaps I'm having to put in 450 watt accelerations for a good few seconds just to be able to move up to him. This climb is really, really difficult on these gravel stretches. If the wheel goes, it's almost impossible. And as I come around there, Nick there, I realise that I'm probably going to have to use that momentum and put a little bit of pressure on Nick. He wants to throw a shot, I'll throw one back at him, and let's see how strong he's really feeling. Because like I said, when that gap opens up, it is so fast that you really don't have time to react. And I think Nick let his eye go for just 1 second there, and that's all it takes. That gap has opened up to 15 metres, and I sense my opportunity to go on and to go with this A-rider. We've already caught the other A's, we've gone past them, there's just one guy left, and I'm thinking, I might be able to beat this guy here, take the overall win on the road, but also he might be able to give me a turn and pull me a bit further away from Nick. So unfortunate for Nick there, but he fights really, really hard and he does a great job of really coming back, and he gets to within 5 metres of my wheel. But as he does, we hit that 9% pitch, so I like to make the pace a little bit higher, use that advantage I've got as the lighter rider, put a little bit of pressure on. And as we can see, that distances Nick again, and he's going to find it real difficult to be able to close that gap. So Nick is pretty much in our rear view mirror here, and that gap, look how quickly it's opened up. He was 5 metres off the wheel maybe 30 seconds ago, and already it's game over for him. He's going to find it really difficult, especially with those B's and the C rider behind, putting on pressure. But maybe if they can group up, they can work together, maybe they can close the gap, but it's not going to be easy. And at that point, right there, is where I realised that that A-rider was not a gravel bike, and he may not have been as strong as most A-riders, because I was able to put in a bit of an acceleration and we're able to go past him here as we go under the Flamme Rouge banner with 1k to go. But at this point, our gap is only 5-6 seconds over the A-rider and only 9 seconds over Nick, so we're going to have to make sure that we keep on pushing. My average heart rate for this race was 178 beats per minute. Zwift Power tells me that's a record. I've never had an average heart rate so high for one race, so I was really going really hard here. And that is because I know I cannot ease up. If I give these guys a glimmer that they're going to be able to get back into this, it's going to give them hope. They're going to find some watts, they're going to find some legs to try and close the gap. So I have to make it as hard as I possibly can for them right now to make them feel like this is impossible for them to close. And it's going to be really tough. As we can see, my heart rate is just bouncing around that 180 mark. I think my average was 178 and my max was 182. So such a narrow field that I'm pretty much on the limit the whole time here. And this is my first race back from sickness. Well, my second race back. I actually did a race yesterday that I won, a really good race. Unfortunately for me, when I got to the end and did my celebration, I'd realised that the recording didn't work properly. So unfortunately, we haven't got that one to show you back. But the upshot of that was that I felt quite tired, quite weak. The legs were quite sore today. But actually, when I got on the bike, the power numbers were good. The legs felt okay once I'd warmed up a little bit. And with only 1.5 minutes left of this one, I know that unless I crack monumentally, I just have to stay upright, keep applying the pressure, and this one is going to be mine to take home. These guys are going to find it real difficult to close a gap this big with such little time left on the road. But I am really, really suffering at this point. It's hard to convey whilst you're watching it back, but my heart rate is super high. I am really, really hurting here. These race efforts, I've said it before, if you've taken some time off racing and you come back, really, really hard to adjust to these levels. But at this point, I know that the job is done. Here's my surprise celebration. Well, would you look at that? What a look that is. Ladies, look out. And I figured, well, I've embarrassed myself so many times on the internet, was once more looking like an idiot. And you don't get to do this in those sprint finishes. I'm able to get off the bike, stretch my legs, do a little jumping jack, and roll over the line. What a birthday ride that was. Really, really enjoyed that one. The pace ended up being really, really brutal. My average power for that one for the 8 minutes and 12 seconds before I got off the bike was 4.6 watts per kilo for a 4.4 average with that time off the bike and a normalised power of about 4.65, 4.7 for the 9 minutes. So even though I didn't feel great, even though the legs felt a bit weak, so I didn't need to worry after all. The legs were there when I needed them, and we can see that we get some really nice feedback from Nick there, and I make sure to tell him in the chat as well. He did a great job against the mixed category field, getting second place. He really made me work on the first half of that climb, so fantastic job to Nick. He can be really pleased with that second place against the mixed category field. There we go, you can see just how happy I am to take that one home, especially after yesterday's race recording didn't work. So I really, really enjoyed that one, really good fun. Let me know if you like this new style of video. Should I keep doing the to camera bits or should I keep it as I usually do with the audio voiceover? Let me know down below. And for now, I'm going to hand you back over to myself on the bike for my post-race thoughts.
So there you go, you heard what Nick said. He was on the gravel bike, we called it right. I knew he was going too fast for that Tron. I thought I was going to have an easy ride of it, but it wasn't to be. I'm glad we took our chances against the A's and didn't rush off at the start. We caught them up naturally. That makes up for the race I did yesterday that I won, one of my best ever races that I thought I recorded, and after the fact I realised I hadn't pressed go. It's always nice to get a win on your birthday. So I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. Look forward to catching you on the next one. Like, comment, most importantly subscribe. And as always, race fast, ride hard, and remember that you are appreciated.